Good evening, everybody.
Don't want to know.
So hi, everybody. We're already having fun. And now we welcome you to join in our fun. This is our last event in the Metro Detroit Book and Author Society's spring series. And tonight our guest is best-selling author, New York Times best-selling author, JT Ellison, who's one of the biggest names in mystery and suspense. So welcome, JT.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited that we finally got to make this happen.
Oh, I've been looking forward to this for a really long time because you are one of my absolute favorites.
Thank you. That's so sweet.
So for those of you who may be joining us for the first time and who don't know me, I'm Cathy Russ. I am the president of the Metro Detroit Book and Author Society. And for those of you who may not know, the Metro Detroit Book and Author Society is a nonprofit organization in the Detroit area that celebrates books, authors, reading, and literacy. However, since we've transformed our programs to Zoom, I think our reach has expanded beyond the Metro Detroit area. So if you're joining us from parts outside of here, we really welcome you and hope you'll come back. The Metro Detroit Book and Author Society fulfills our mission by giving grants to libraries and literacy-based organizations. So we do appreciate that you show your support by attending our events, because that allows us to keep giving grants to all these great organizations that promote books and authors and readings. So please tell your friends about us, and please sign up for our newsletter at www.bookandauthor.org. Before we get started, I would also like to give a shout out to our partner bookstore, BookBeat in Oak Park, Michigan, and say thank you for working with us. We always encourage you, because I know that at the end of this, you're going to want to buy all of JT's books, and we hope that you will use BookBeat if you can, if you're local. If you're not, please just patronize an independent bookseller, because it's just so important, and they need our support. They do such a wonderful job. So now one more housekeeping detail, and then we will get to it. JT and I are going to chat for a little while, but while we're talking, please feel free to enter your questions in the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. We have disabled the chat, so you have no choice but to use Q&A. But you can enter your questions throughout our conversation, and then in about a half an hour or so, we will start taking your questions. So, please take advantage of the opportunity and ask anything you want. All right, there we go. There's all the housekeeping out of the way. So I would like to introduce our special guest author, JT Ellison. She is the co-author of the series A Brit in the FBI, which she co-authored with Catherine Coulter. She's also written 8 books in the Lieutenant Taylor Jackson series and 5 standalone mysteries, including this awesome book, Her Dark Lies. So welcome, JT.
It is so good to be here. Hi.
Hi. And you are in a cabin in a hailstorm in Colorado right now.
I'm on top of a mountain, and it just hailed, and I think we're going to be okay, though. It looks like it might be moving through for a while, so that's good.
That actually sounds almost like the starting point for an idea for maybe a next book, because I think the place where I want to start tonight, I was trying to decide where I wanted to begin, and I decided I wanted to talk about the inspiration for Her Dark Lies, because it came from a very happy event, which was your birthday, right?
It was.
Can you talk about that?
It was. So my awesome family decided that it would be a really cool thing to take me to Italy for my big 5-0. And so we got over there, and it was like the most disastrous trip you can imagine. It poured rain every day. Everybody got sick, and we were just all miserable. And we land on the shores of Lake Como, and I wake up on my birthday. I've lost my voice, but the sun is out, and it's like, yes, the gods have smiled on us. So we took the ferry around. It was really fun. We sat there and we're having dinner, and fireworks started going off. I'm like, wow, I am really impressed. My birthday dinner, you guys got fireworks? And they were like, yeah, no, that's not us. I was like, oh, okay. It turns out there was a wedding on the island that a yacht had pulled up while we were there, and a group got off, and it was a wedding party, and they were having their wedding on this island. And I started, my mind starts going, right? It's like, I've got to write this into a book. But what would happen if somebody died during the wedding? And it's that kind of thriller process that just kicks it into gear. I was also listening to Rebecca doing research for another book at the time. So the combination of there was a question that was raised in Rebecca that was never resolved, that I couldn't shake. And this awesome yacht and island and fireworks for this wedding. And I'm like, yep, there it is. There's the story right there.
Well, so one of the things I wanted to ask you, because I very much felt like there were echoes of Rebecca in this book. And it's I have always enjoyed that book, and it's sort of a go-to sometimes when I feel like all gothic-y and creepy and all that. So what was the question that never got answered?
Well, if I say it, it might ruin the book a little bit.
Okay.
So I'll tell you off screen what that was. It's not really that important. Well, maybe a little, but it is, it's one of those things that she just never resolved. And I was like, well, what if, and every good book starts with a what if. And it is not a retelling by any means, but is an homage, right? Mm-hmm. It is an homage to Rebecca, to talented Mr. Ripley, to, some of the really great Gothics that I grew up on. I've always wanted to write that kind of book. And so this was my opportunity.
So I'm going to ask you, because I don't want to spoil anything and I don't want to give anything away. And I read this book in about 2 days, and I am very excited about it and to talk about it. But like I said, I don't want to give anything away. So I'm going to ask you if you would tell us the plot.
Sure. Okay. That's fair enough. So it's the story of Claire and Jack. They are engaged. They're getting ready to leave on their fantastic destination wedding weekend. His family is exceptionally wealthy, and she comes from a somewhat troubled past, and she's never quite really understood what he sees in her. There's one big problem. He has a dead wife that he will not talk about. And that's something that kind of sparks an obsession for her to find out, who is this woman that he was married to and why won't he talk about her? In the midst of trying to get ready for this wedding and this high society situation that she's getting into. And she's a large format oil painter. So she's an artist, and she just wants to, she wants her art to be known, and he's creating that world for her. So she's just on the cusp of massive change in every aspect of her life. And that's a fun place to start a story.
Well, and it doesn't hurt that he's so rich, because one of the things that I enjoyed, he's so rich. I mean, it's beyond the housekeepers and they have the wedding planner and the bodyguards and the villa, and then just even the food, I was like, I want to be that rich.
Wouldn't it be awesome? At least for a weekend, right?
Yeah.
It's, everything they do, and they don't take it for granted. They're actually philanthropists. Jack runs their foundation, which is a variation of Doctors Beyond Borders. Without Borders. Sorry, I always say that wrong. And so that's because that's their foundation. It's got a beyond in it. That's what I screwed up. But they are, they're good people, maybe, maybe. But it is kind of interesting to have this world, this whole new world that she's stepping into. They're really into modern art. So his grandfather was a cinematographer. So big Hollywood guy. His great grandfather was a war hero. They've got this massive legacy. They own this island, and this island is not it's not the place that you would think about, right? It is.
No, it's not the Bahamas.
No, it is not. It's often the Western Tyrrhenian Sea, basically in between Scylla and Charybdis is where I put it.
That was a nice touch.
Yeah, because it's basically the island that Scylla lives on. So everything is that balanced razor edge, right? Everything about this story is balancing on that razor edge. But the villa and the fortress and the crypt and the labyrinth and the artist colony, and this place has all of these really cool aspects to it. That just the setting. You mentioned the setting, and it's actually the first time I made a setting up.
Oh, really?
I think every other book I've ever done has had a real setting. And this one I had to make up. And I think that's why this setting has become such a major component to the story, because I needed it to come alive for me. So I should have probably taken a lot of it out. And I was like, no, I'm going to leave it in because it just really does set the stage that the whole island is a character in the book.
Well, and I think if you had, oh my gosh, if you had dialed it down, it wouldn't be the same book. It wouldn't be because
No,
I mean,
it wouldn't.
even the cover for people who can't see. But
Such
so
great cover.
from the time they approach the island on the hydrofoil, and there's a storm coming, and there's this tension, but like everything about this island, so there's cliffs, there's the villa, but it's a fortress, and there's crypts, and the labyrinth is outside. But the grounds, but there's also the kind of all the tunnels from the World War II, and
and before, and even before, back in
yeah.
Roman times, that they were, bringing women to the Roman emperors there to, dispose of as they would, it's just, it's got this horrifically wild history to it.
Yeah. And it was great because what to me anyway, as a reader, what it does is it sets up an expectation that this isn't going to be a regular wedding, but it's like, well, how could somebody not die going to a place like this?
Oh, right. I mean, yeah. It's natural. And that's the trope, right? That's absolutely the trope of this kind of story, right? When you have a wedding on an island and it's isolated and there's a storm, that's all the Gothic elements that come into the story. And it's, the fun with something like this is how you take those tropes and you turn them around and make them something unique and of your own doing instead of what everybody else has done.
Yes, because that is what I appreciated as a lifelong mystery reader is, sometimes, as all mystery readers do, I think to an extent, you play games like, okay, who done it? Who's going to die? How'd they do it? And this book just kept flipping and flipping. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. I'm not sure. And I appreciate that. It keeps things interesting. It keeps it from, getting stale. And, the storm comes in and it's like, ooh. But one thing that I think that I really appreciated about your writing is you are a very visual writer and an excellent descriptive writer. So when the rain starts just sheeting down, or the generator fails and it's pitch black in this, I could see it. Do you have fun writing those things? Or is it hard? Some people have a harder time with description. Some people have a harder time with dialogue.
No, I love it. I could sit there and describe things for pages and pages. I'm one of those. Like I do have to dial it back. I have to pull, because I love experiencing it. And I am a very visual writer. I'm a very visual person. So that's, it's just kind of a natural part of it. I like dialogue. That's fun. it's always interesting to see how the characters are going to talk to each other. But I am primarily a narrative writer, I think.
Yeah, no, sure. It was great. Well, let's talk about our characters. We have Jack and Claire, and they both have pasts.
Yes, they do.
They're not really talking to each other about their pasts. They're in love, I think, pretty definitively.
Yes.
But there's sort of some walls up. So so you're pitching them into this wedding. They have secrets, but I was thinking about it, and at a certain age, everybody has baggage. Claire's what, like 28, and she's not.
She's even a little younger than that. Yeah, she's very young. She's very young.
She's young, but she still has a past, but she's not talking about it, and Jack's not talking about it either. So how do you throw those two together and decide what happens?
Because I don't know what their pasts are.
Okay.
I don't know what I find out when you find out. Claire, especially, I could not crack her. She would not tell me. I knew what Jack's big issues were mostly, but Claire would not tell me. She was the most difficult character I think I've ever written, because she just would not open up to me. And that's who she is. She has got layer upon layer of protection. And it's interesting to me that, even as a writer who's created this person, that she was so closed off. She was so closed off to me and even to her best friends and her family. She has got a secret. She's got a big secret. And, Jack does too. And it's like, whose is worse?
Yeah.
And they know, they're both, they are in love without a doubt. And they are experiencing that early flush of a relationship with how much do they really love me? Will they love me if they know the truth about me? And that's, I don't know that everybody goes into a marriage having revealed every secret of their life, right? But these big ones, you're supposed to kind of get out of the way. Like she doesn't want to have kids. She's not telling him that, but
Yeah.
she's thinking it. She's like, I really do need to tell him that. And there's all of these little things that have built up between them that they're hiding. And that's so much fun for me as a writer to start figuring out, all right, who's telling who the truth here and why? I mean, when you go into, he has her sign an NDA as part of her prenup. What? Why? Why did that happen? And I didn't know. I really didn't know. I figured it out later. I figured it out later. I'm a very organic writer. I kind of set off on the path and see what happens as it goes. I don't like to outline it. It takes all the fun out of it for me, because the discovery is the fun part. So yeah, there are a lot of elements that I had no idea. I really had no idea what was going on.
Oh, that makes me even happier, because if you're discovering it and we're discovering it, it is more spontaneous, and I think it kind of busts those tropes, because you're not playing to a trope. You're kind of going,
Exactly.
okay, where do I want to go with this? So the family, the Compton family, and then Claire's family, the Hunters, the Hunters, they have issues too. And I think there are secrets on both sides of the family as well. And that just made me think that, when you marry somebody, you are marrying their family to an extent. And so the issues I think that both families have are on full display eventually. In the court, as there's always some drunk uncle at the wedding, right?
Except for that's her drunk mother.
Yeah.
Her poor mom. Oh, her poor mom is an alcoholic and falls off the wagon just in time for the wedding. So that's never good.
And she's got a sister who's kind of got sibling rivalry issues to
the nth degree. Jack's grandfather has Alzheimer's. I mean, it's kind of a cacophony of all of these personalities meeting on the field and clashing and fighting their way for primacy. It's like, who's gonna come out on top in this situation?
Yeah. And then through it all, there's this element of impending doom. The weather gets worse. Is the storm going to keep Claire's family from making it to the wedding? Things start happening. Should we go through with the wedding? Should we not? And it just causes that tension to just mount until I was like, oh my God, it's just gonna blow. And then the body count starts. So how do you, when you're writing, and to go back to the organic part, you don't know who's gonna die until they do?
Normally, that's true.
Okay.
This book, I every once in a while I'll do a contest to do character names in a book. And this one I got on Instagram. Lisa Gardner had just set out her annual Kill a Buddy, Name a Friend contest. And I'm like, I'm so going to co-opt this year. And I got on Instagram and I said, hey, who wants to die in my next book? It is hands down the most successful Instagram post I've ever had. It exploded. And I felt bad because I didn't want to just pick one person. I mean, there were hundreds and hundreds of entries. So we decided to pick two. And then somebody wrote me a DM and said, I volunteer as tribute. I'm like, okay, Hunger Games, you're in. And then somebody else wrote me and said, I am prepared to die. I'm like, and a Harry Potter reference. Now you're in. And then somebody else won an auction to have a character name. And the next thing I know, I have all these people who I have to kill.
You have to kill off.
And it was really, it's been very weird because, I finished the book quite a while ago. And one of the characters who won got her, got her book and wrote me. And I opened my email and here is this name. And I'm like, but she's dead. Yeah. Wait, no, she's not. She's not. Oh my God, of course she's not. It just was so bizarre, just so very bizarre. So normally I would never do that. body counts, it's a suspense novel. It's not necessarily that kind of book.
Right.
But it is a thriller. So, the reader knows more about what's happening than the characters do, which is very typical thriller kind of setup. And yeah, there's a body count. I felt so bad. I mean, it actually took me a really long time to write this book, much longer than normal, because there were people that I had grown very, very fond of that I had to kill. And it was really difficult. Guess what? We're not going to be doing that contest anytime soon.
Oh, I was going to say, kill me off. I'm interviewing you. Take me out next time. I no names, but did you ever hear from anybody that died in the book to say that, like, you did right by them?
Oh yeah, I sent them all early drafts so they could see it, and before it came out and everything, and they were very pleased with their demises. So that's great.
Oh.
There's a lot of honorable deaths in this book.
Oh, very much so. Very much so. There was one in particular I was like, oh, no.
I know. Look, I just got goosebumps. Yeah, that was a hard one.
Yeah, you know which one I'm talking about.
I do. Absolutely do.
So I want to ask you, because, and I understand, I can't believe I'm saying this to you. I understand if the answer is no, but would you ever consider a sequel to this book? Because I kind of really want to know where these two are in 5 to 10 years.
So I don't know if you read the acknowledgements, but this is probably the only standalone I've ever written that I know what happens next if I need to have another book or story or whatever. It's my film agent says, she always says, this is great. What's season 2? And this one, I know what season 2 is. If it ever got picked up for television, I know exactly where this is going. And it's something that I might, who knows, I might go back and visit in a short story or novella, just to see, some of these characters are really dynamic and interesting. And yeah, their stories might not be 100% over.
I mean, for me, I closed the book and it was just one of those ones where I went like, whoa. And I thought, like what? It could go so many ways.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that are unresolved.
Yes.
Not for the story, but for who the characters are. There are things that are unresolved that, in a standalone, you can't resolve everything. It's no fun to wrap it up that neatly, but yeah.
It's not real life either.
Never say never.
Yeah. And so for those of you if you've read the book, kind of what we're talking about. If you haven't read it, you have to read it and then you'll know what we're talking about. But it just keeps you guessing from start to finish. But JT, you mentioned, because I was going to ask you about this, you said your film agent. To me, this is very much a book that could be turned into a movie or a series. Has there been any? Are you allowed to talk? I mean, can you answer that?
You know how that is. There's it's when it happened, when the stars align, you will hear.
Okay. All right.
For sure. I have a lot of stuff under options, so it's all happening in various ways, and you just never know what happens.
Yeah, and with COVID too, I know we're a little further along than we were a year ago, but I know that Hollywood and the movie making, TV making industry is not ramped up to what it was. So
yeah, it's just a weird time, but yeah, I would love for that to happen. I would love to see that happen.
Yeah, this one would especially, I think, just the scenery and the creepiness would just be so good. But I wanted to go back to your background, if you don't mind, because one of the things that I just kind of reading up about your background, you majored in creative writing, but also political science. Mm-hmm. And then you worked, you worked as a financial analyst, but you also worked in Washington in the Department of Commerce. So how do you go from that to this? It was definitely the creative writing part was the part that I was supposed to be doing. My professor, my thesis advisor, said I wasn't good enough to get published. And so I quit and I followed my other, major, and I went to graduate school in political management and, worked in politics for a really long time and
then moved on to aerospace marketing because, it's a logical transition. And then we ended up in Nashville, and I had no way to get a job. I mean, all I knew how to do was aerospace marketing and presidential politics, neither of which Nashville has any of. Couldn't get a job. And I ended up, our cat died. I was like the worst country music song. The cat died. I didn't have any friends. I couldn't find my way around town, just all of these crazy things. Couldn't get a job. And so I ended up going to work at the vet where we adopted another cat. And I hurt my back 3 days in and had to have back surgery. I know, right? Bad country music song. But as I'm recovering, I went to the library and I asked for, good crime fiction, and they gave me John Sanford, which I had never read before. And I was 3 books into the Prey series when I was like, that's it. I'm going to try this again. And I told my husband, and he said, go for it, because he's fantastic. And so I did. And the first paragraph I wrote, I hit the period and I burst into tears because I was home. And that's where I was supposed to be. So 8 years away from writing. That just, what a shame, what a tragedy that I listened to that woman,
Well,
what a tragedy.
What a shame on her for saying that. I mean,
right.
I mean,
and she was genuinely, now I was writing crime fiction in a literary program. So, my voice didn't mesh with what they wanted me to be writing. And I think, she just genuinely felt like I wasn't good enough to hack it in that world. And I think she was sincere. At the time, I probably wasn't good enough, but I mean, I wasn't ever going to get better if I didn't keep trying.
Right.
So
did you send her a copy of your first published book?
I looked her up and found out that she did not get tenure. So I figured karma took care of it.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Okay. I feel better about that then.
Yeah, we're even.
Yeah. So from there, you also co-wrote a series with Catherine Coulter, A Brit in the FBI. And I would like to know how that came about, and how do you like writing with somebody versus writing solo? Different experience.
Very different experience. So I had written 12 books, so 8 Taylor Jacksons and 4 Samantha Owens. When Catherine came calling, she was looking for a co-writer for a series that she had developed. And it was just too good of an opportunity. It's Catherine Coulter. My God, I've been reading her since I was a kid. It's like, oh my gosh, this is such a cool opportunity. And so she flew me out to California and we talked and plotted out the first book. And I took it home and wrote it. The problem is Catherine and I, neither one of us are plotters. So we had to learn how to plot, and that sucked. But it worked out really well. And what we discovered is 2 brains are definitely better than one. When I would get stuck in a normal book, if I'm stuck, I'm talking to my friends, I'm taking my husband to dinner to have margaritas to try to shake something free. But with a co-writer, you can literally just call and say, hey, this isn't working. What should we do? Mm-hmm. And, she'll make a suggestion and that'll kick me into gear and we go back and forth. And so it's an incredibly collaborative experience. And I learned a ton, and we are dear friends, and just, it was a wonderful experience. A lot of fun.
You think you'd ever go back to that or do one more in the series or return? Or...
Never say never. I'm just, I don't like closing doors. I mean, right now the series is wrapped and we did 6 really big books ending up with saving the world. Once you've saved the world.
Yeah. Where do you go from there?
Where do you go from there? Again, maybe us not plotting is a problem because we're kind of like, oh, well, this is a natural end to the series right here. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe.
You have like a dream co-author that you'd want to work with?
No, I think that's, co-authoring is a very unique situation. And I have been very lucky in the people that I have collaborated with. I've collaborated with other people other than Catherine. And it's a marriage in many ways. And you have to have the same type of personality, like an alpha female and a beta female trying to write together is not going to work, right? You have to have 2 alphas, right? You have to have people that, are going to do the work and are going to meet the deadlines and take it seriously and have the same kind of drive and energy and ambition for a story that you do. So I've been very blessed in my co-writing partners and being able to do that. And, you pick the right people. You got to pick the right people.
Yeah, I can see if you were with somebody who wasn't like you, or like you said, a beta female, I'd be like, I don't know, what do you want to write about? And that's just not going to work.
Oh yeah, no, that would not work. I mean, and somebody has to drive the bus, right? You have to agree up front who's driving the bus. But it's, it is really, it's a really interesting dynamic when you can put two brains on one story, and it almost always elevates it to something you would never have been able to do yourself. See, all the script writers in Hollywood know this, right? They do everything by committee.
Yeah.
They get that, but it's, novelists are not that way. We absolutely are, lone beasts. So it is, you've got to be real careful to pick the right person, but when you get the right person, it's a phenomenal experience.
Oh, I can just picture the excitement when somebody says, what about this? And it's like, yes, let's do it. How are we gonna get that done? And
it is. It's just like, oh my God. I mean, I remember on the first book, we literally had a moment, we were on the phone together and we were writing together. Like she was saying a word, I was saying a word. That was kind of a magic flow. I mean, writers get in that flow themselves, but not usually with somebody else. Yeah. So it was really cool. She's awesome.
That just makes me happy. So kind of, well, not exactly on the same lines, but so you've written series books, you've written standalones. Do you have a preference? Do you, is one easier than the other, harder?
Standalones are harder for me because I'm creating the world from scratch. Mm-hmm. Series, you already have the world, you have the characters, you have you've got such a jump start on the book. And it's all about the plot and how that affects the characters that are already there. The standalone, it just takes me longer because I've got a bigger canvas that I have to work with. And I have to develop the characters from scratch and the setting and the plot and all of the things. So they just take me a little bit longer. But it's usually whatever I'm not working on, I want to be working on the other.
Yeah.
If I'm writing a series book, I want to be writing a standalone. If I'm writing a standalone, I want to be writing a series book.
Yes. I feel that way sometimes about book group books. I look forward to reading it and then I have to read it. And then I think, I kind of want to just read.
I don't want to read that.
I want to read something else, but it is what it is.
I get that. Right? I totally get that.
So I want to ask you too, because one of the things that I didn't know about you that I just think is the coolest thing ever is you host a series for Nashville Public Television.
Yes.
And it is called A Word on Words. And I watched a bunch of the segments and I was just like, that is the coolest thing ever. How did you get that gig? I mean, and do you love it? And you won an Emmy for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yes, I love it. I love that. I love that Emmy. It's very fun. The show has been in Nashville for a very long time and was hosted by John Siegenthaler for over 40 years. Every Sunday morning, he had an author in studio and did a 30-minute in-studio interview. When he passed away, the station didn't want the show to go away. And as it happened, I had been on the show several times with John, and I absolutely adored him, and we got along really well. And when they were rebooting the series, the producer came to me and said, "Hey, we'd like you to come and be the host." I'm like, "You've got to be kidding me." No. I mean, I've got a big fear of public speaking, and the idea of doing public speaking on television was not something that I was really game for. But they talked me into it, and I did my screen test, and it worked out really well. And so they offered me the gig, and we just wrapped season 6, and it's been wonderful. I mean, to be able to carry on John Siegenthaler's literary legacy in Nashville is incredible. That's very special to me, and it's a lot of fun. I've met a lot of amazing authors and read some incredible books, and it's a lot of fun. Normally we would tape on scene, right? Mm-hmm. Wherever, for example, Margaret Atwood, The Heart Goes Last, we went to jail and we did the interview in jail. which was really fun. One of my biggest fears, being incarcerated. So that was
When you're
really,
with Margaret Atwood,
when
she's
you're with
going to get
Margaret
you out.
Atwood, I
Yeah.
mean, she's going to find a way. So, we go on location and tape these things. So Zoom has kind of messed with that. So we've been doing at-home editions. But the upside is we're able to access authors that aren't necessarily going to be coming through Nashville.
Yeah.
So we've gotten to spread out a little bit with what we're doing. So I'm really curious to see how things are going to go going forward with the pandemic, if authors are touring. And I think it'll probably end up being a hybrid situation. And that's great.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's certainly expanded our horizons, because we used to, the Metro Detroit Book and Author Society, we would have 2 lunches a year and everybody would have to come to us. But now, I mean, we can talk to you. I
Right.
saw you interviewed Alka Joshi,
Yes.
and she was our guest early in April. And so, yeah, the range, and your co-host talked to
Mary-Laura
Maggie
Philpott.
O'Farrell, which
Mhm.
was like, Hamnet. I just thought that was great. So yeah, the Zoom, I know there's Zoom fatigue, but there are some upsides to it.
Oh,
as well.
I love it. I mean, and gosh, this season has been really spectacular. And, we do a 20-25 minute interview, and then the producer and editor edit it down to a 3-minute interstitial, which is what shows on TV.
Mhm.
But the transcript of the interview is there as well. So people can read the whole transcript and everything, which is a nice touch, I think.
So audience, you need to check this out. If you haven't already, it's A Word on Words. And there's just, and you have a great array of authors too. I mean, you've got fiction, you've got nonfiction, absolute diversity. Do you have a
Yes.
dream guest that you hope will sign on?
Oh my gosh. I just started making my list for next year of people that I want to see if we can have on. And I don't know, there's so many. We have been incredibly blessed with the people that we have been able to talk with, and we love debuts. It's really fun getting the debut authors in and everything. We just had a really good season. So I'm thinking we'll see.
All right. Well, I'll be watching.
I like to talk to all of them. I mean, everybody. I want to talk to everybody.
It's fun, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
talking to authors about books, and I mean, it's just like the best gig.
It is the best gig.
But do you find it ironic, because you're on Nashville Public Television, but given your early introduction to Nashville, do you feel like you're home now? Like, is it your place?
Yeah. Nashville's been incredibly good to us on a number of levels. And yeah, it is. The irony of all of it does not pass me by.
Well, my last trip before COVID, the Public Library Association had its conference in Nashville in February of 2020. Okay, yes, that's right.
That was my last event. That was my last live event.
That was my last one too. Yeah, but it's a cool town. It's a really cool town.
And it's changed so much since we've lived there, but we moved there in 98. So it has changed a lot, but it's lovely. We love it. It will always be home.
It was a lot of fun. So, well, I before I lose complete track of time, I think it's time for our questions and answers. So, Raya.
Hi, Raya.
Hey, Raya.
How's it going? So I've been fascinated with this conversation, and I'll just remind all of our attendees today that you too can get in on the Q&A action by clicking the Q&A button down in your toolbar. It looks like the 2 thought bubbles crashing into each other. So click that button and type in your question for JT, and we'll start with the ones that we've got. This one comes from Sandra, who wants to know how long it took you to write this book. You said, the inspiration came to you very quickly, but how long did the writing take?
Well, this one actually took longer than any book I've ever worked on. It took a full 14 months, which for me is glacial pace. But, it is what it is. It was a difficult book because of the homage. And I wanted to make sure that, it was done pitch perfectly. I had a subplot that was not working that I ended up having to take out. I had 2 knee surgeries in the middle of it, and of course, a pandemic. So it really was kind of a different process for me. I would not like to go back and do it again. And it's so funny that people are like, I read it in 2 days. I'm like, oh my gosh, if you had any idea how long it took me to write. There's 7 drafts of this book. Not 7 not 7 rough drafts, 7 different books. So
just I'm sorry, and I don't mean to interrupt the people who are asking questions, but I want to kind of just follow up on that, because 7 versions. So when you were talking about the organic process, so almost like 7 different. I don't know why I'm thinking of the Avengers with the offshoots in time, but like like it could go this way, it could go this way, it could go this way, and then
sometimes that happens. Yeah, and then I had to pick one. You had
to pick your favorite.
I picked the best out of the 7 and created the book. I mean, I literally sat there with a big screen Mac, and here's one manuscript open, here's the final manuscript. And I would drag, I want that chapter, I want that chapter, close that one. I want that chapter, I want that chapter, close that. And because I got about 70,000 words in 3 or 4 times, and it just wasn't going the right direction. And, it's, sometimes they are difficult. Sometimes books are hard to write. It's a blast of a job, but it's a job. And this one in particular was a job, but I was very happy with how it ended up.
And I think too, when you have such a rich setting with so many possibilities and such rich characters, I mean,
right.
The mind reels with the possibilities. So you have to narrow it down and get them to a place. So
and you were talking about, if there was more. And so you can see it now hearing that, yeah, there's more. I just, you have to, it's a series. It should have been a series. It's a standalone that should have been the beginning of a series, without a doubt. And that would have probably made my life a lot easier if I had recognized that. I didn't realize that until I had finished and was doing edits on the last round and went, oh, yeah, that's why you were having so much trouble. This was a series.
You could bring it back.
Maybe.
You could turn it.
Maybe.
So,
all
right.
I'll take that segue though, because we've got a question from Joan, who wants to know about the role of your editor and if your editor is very involved in sort of the evolutions of your draft.
So normally, no. Normally, I don't give anything until my editor that hasn't been read by several people, and I've gone through my own proofreadings of it and everything. When I give it to them, it's pretty well finished, and I'm thinking, okay, we may have some things to change, but it's not going to be a huge developmental edit. This one, I threw up my hands. I ended up throwing up my hands and saying, I need help. And so my agent read it and my editor read it, and they both came back and said, you have a timeline problem. I'm like, I know. I'm well aware. How do I fix it? Neither of which they would tell me. So, it was great. It was really helpful for them to point out the obvious there. And the resolution was just taking out the subplot, and that fixed the timeline issue. But oh my goodness. Yeah. Every once in a while, I will get somebody involved early if I'm having trouble, but usually it's one of my best friends who read for me, and we talk, we collectively collaborate. We've got a group of us that have a little, kind of a writer's group that if we're having problems, call somebody up and say, hey, what would you do here? And that's helpful. But my editor's great. She's a great editor. She identified the timeline issue.
Those must be fun conversations, though, when you call your friends who are writers and say, hey, or if they call you, where you go, ooh,
oh, sure. Sure. We're texting at, 9:30 at night, are you watching Gladiator? Okay, good. Because I was wondering about X, could I do that in this book? Would that work? Oh yeah. We have a great group.
That's great. Well, this is a question from Tammy that's sort of like, asking you to choose your favorite child, which is what was your favorite book to write and why?
Okay. So that one's actually easy. There's 2. The Immortals which is the 5th book in the Taylor Jackson series, because it was the first book that I had ever written with her that I didn't have nightmares. So that was great.
It's always
Really enjoyed the writing of that book. I didn't have a single nightmare the entire time. 6 months of just happy dreams. It was great. And the other was Lie to Me, because I knew I was leveling up. I knew that book was going to be a book. You know, I knew, right? I knew that the story was strong. I knew that the characters, I knew every part of that story was going to come together. And I got to go to Paris twice to do research. So it's a combination of the two. I'm glad you didn't ask which book I liked the best, but which book I liked writing the best.
Writing the best. Well, I want to hear more about these Paris trips now.
So for another big, huge birthday, my husband took me to Paris because he's fantastic. I mentioned earlier how fantastic he is. I had never been. I took French for years and years in school, and I have never been to France. And so he took me for my birthday, and it was spectacular. And the idea for the story came while I was sitting, you know, we're having champagne in a sidewalk cafe. You know, it's like the perfect scenario. And it was so good. And the story was such a solid one. You know, when I went home and I started writing it up, I'm like, this is actually going to be a book. Now we're going to have to go back to Paris. So we went back for our 20th anniversary. So yay, husband. What a
he
good
needs
husband.
to keep taking you places. Like if you ever
Right?
have writer's block, you go, honey.
Yes, go somewhere else. And I'm a hands-on researcher. I want to, you know, any place that is in my book, I want to have been and experienced and smelled the smells and heard what it sounds like. And just, you know, again, it's a very sensory experience for me writing a book. And I want those details because I think it'll be sensory for you as well.
Mm. Yeah, that definitely comes across.
Plus, I wonder if you could write off some of these trips as like, you know,
Oh, well, sure.
official expenses.
Yeah.
So,
No, I mean, that's a research trip is a research trip, regardless
Absolutely.
of where it is.
Absolutely. Just go on another European vacation.
I know,
Okay.
right?
I think we have time for maybe one or two more. So if you have one more burning question in you, audience, please type it in now. Don't delay. I'm gonna ask one more from Tammy. This is a perennial favorite question for Book and Author Society, which is, what's your favorite author that you love to read? Or if you don't like that question, like, who are you reading now?
I'm a reader, so I have like 1,000 favorites. Diana Gabaldon, literally the day I've already blocked off November 25th on my calendar, because when that book comes out, that's what I will be doing. There will be nothing else, right? All my Thanksgiving prep will be done because I'm going to be reading that book for that weekend. So just heads up to the world. I'm coming to your house for Thanksgiving.
You're most welcome. Cereal, because I'll probably be reading that book too, but
and the book that I'm reading now, I'm like an inch from finishing, and it's Lisa Unger has a new book coming out called Last Girl Ghosted. I'm sure you guys know Lisa. She is truly one of our most talented, inventive suspense authors right now. And anything that she writes is, I mean, I would read her grocery list and think that it was nuanced and deep. You know, she's just amazing. And I'm almost done with that book. I'm going to finish it tonight. I talked to her this afternoon and just like, dude, this book is amazing. I mean, I'm totally jealous that I didn't think of it. That's always a good sign.
But do you wonder, since, you know, okay, so she's a friend of yours, and you think, how do you dream this stuff up? And, you know, do I need to be worried about you?
You know, it's funny because there are, you know, when you're good friends with other writers, you do see elements of your conversations and their life experience and the things that are happening. You know, if you are a close reader of their work, you will see things. And there was actually, we were talking about, I totally got that was X. And she was like, you are the only person that will know that, you know, and it's just those kinds of things that just make it so special. I mean, we've got such an amazing industry, amazing group of writers, especially the female suspense writers right now are just off the hook.
Mhm.
Off the hook. The talent is unbelievable. And I'm just awed by every single book that comes out is just better than the last for all of these authors. And it's incredible.
What I think, because I'm like you, a lifelong mystery suspense reader, and what I think is so great is that they're all, once you've hit a certain caliber, a certain level, they're different. I mean, it's not retreads
Totally.
of somebody else's plot just packaged in a different way. I mean, individual voices, unique stories, unique plots, and that you think, wow, like nobody ever has come up with this before. So
Right.
reading it, it's like, this is blowing my mind because it's different, like, and after you've been reading mystery suspense for a while, sometimes, when you pick up a book and you go, okay, I haven't read it before, but I've read it before.
Sure.
And that's disappointing. But when you have something in your hands that's just like, this is the coolest book ever, it's exciting
amazing
for a reader.
It's amazing. And Ashley Audrain's The Push, that was the first book I read this year. And it's the book that broke my pandemic drought for reading, because I was really having a hard time. And I read that, and it reinvigorated me as a writer. It reinvigorated me as a reader. There's just something about it. It's written in second person, which is so hard to do and do well. And I went in blind thinking it was something different than it was. And wow, it was amazing. There's another book getting ready to come out by Zakiya Harris called The Other Black Girl that is, again, off the hook. Fantastic book. I just interviewed her for the show too. And just an incredibly dynamic writer as a debut. We're going to see a lot of this girl. She's amazing.
That's got to be exciting too, when you talk to somebody who's publishing their debut book, but you've done this, so the industry, but when you think, oh, I can say I knew you when.
Yep. Yeah, that's definitely, 20 years down the road, she is going to be such a household name. I mean, no question about it.
All right. Well, so the Push,
you're all taking
and The Other
notes
Black Girl.
Put it on your book club list.
It's fun.
I'm gonna do one shout out from Teresa, who says that as a writer, they are very inspired by you. And I'm also gonna do one final question before I turn it back over to Cathy to close us out. And you were talking about, different ways of packaging things and different voices, unique voices. So were you pleased with the audio version of your new book? And sometimes, you have more or less to do with how the audiobook gets made. So maybe talk about that for a minute.
Sure. So I do get to choose my narrators. And that is 99% of making sure an audiobook is great, because it's all on the narrator, right? The story has to be good, but if you don't have a great narrator, then it can fall flat, which is always a shame. But I thankfully get to pick my narrators, and I picked Brittany for this, and she is fantastic. I thought it was great. I don't listen to the whole thing. That's kind of weird and creepy in my head to hear somebody else's voice of my stuff, and it messes with my voice sometimes. But it is, I usually listen to the first few chapters and just make sure that the whole sense of it is there. In a few years, I'll listen to it. Like I've listened to Lie to Me. I just can't do it when it's like during release and everything. But a little bit down the road, I then use my audiobooks to kind of, remind me of, oh, hey, here's an element of the story that you can do, and look at how dynamic it is when you hear it out loud, and things like that. So it's definitely a part of the process down the road.
So I would be a terrible host if I didn't ask you, and we always understand if you can't share, but can you tell us anything about what you're working on now?
So I am writing another standalone, and I am 80,000 words in. So I'm getting near, I'm in a transitional moment with it. And I'm not sharing exactly what it is just yet, because I want to finish it first. It's a different kind of book for me. It's still a suspense, but it's definitely, it's a little bit different. So I wanted to finish it first. And I have another thing going on that I can't talk about until March 25th, May 25th. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Not March, May
Wow,
25th.
that's a long time.
May 25th. So please come by my social media on May 25th and you will hear what is next. And it
Okay.
is a secret. It is
All
a
right.
secret until the
Very-
25th.
This is very exciting. If you're on Twitter, follow Thriller Chick. I'm excited for that. And I think that's all the questions we have time for. So I'm gonna pop back out and turn this back to Cathy.
All right. Thanks, Raya.
Thank you.
May 25th is a week from tomorrow, so you don't have to be in suspense very long. So make
A
sure.
week from tomorrow, and it's a big deal. So
That's so
stick
cool.
around. There's just fun things to come.
That's so cool. That's I think that's probably a really great note to end on, because we wish you the very best. And I'm just
Thank
so happy that you were able to come on the program. And I've been looking forward to this since we set it up. And
It's been like 16 months of us trying to get together with this, right?
Yeah, something like that. And Sarah is our Book and Author Society secretary, and I was like, I'll arm wrestle you, but I want it. And she very graciously allowed me to take this interview because, and I had especially really looked forward to this. We get in the library world, library journal and the advanced reviews and I read the I don't know what you would call, not even a review, but just the synopsis, and it was on my list. And then and I'm like, and then this all came together, and I was like, oh,
I'm so glad. I hope one day I can come and do it in person, but this has been lovely. And I'm so glad that the storm didn't blow out it'll probably go out the second we get off, the power is going to go out. So I'm so happy that we got through it.
Well, if you ever write a thriller set in Colorado in the midst of a hailstorm, I'm going to
I have a short story that I have a little short story. It's a flash fiction piece, actually, with that sort of scenario. Maybe I have to go and revisit that and
get that
blow it
out.
up. It's not a bad idea. Thanks
Seriously.
for that. Actually, I'm gonna go do that.
You can bump me off. I'm okay with it.
All right.
I'm really okay with it.
It's happening.
Cool.
Okay.
All right. Well, we will see you on May 25th. So we don't have to say goodbye. We'll just say see you later.
Perfect.
And for all of you who are here, we hope that you'll join us again on Monday, June 14th. Our special guest is going to be Alice Randall, author of Black Bottom Saints, which has very much a resonance with the Detroit area, but definitely appealing for anybody. Just a really, really terrific book. So until we meet again, please like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, sign up for our newsletter at www.bookandauthor.org. And I really want to give another shout out to our partner bookstore, BookBeat. Please support your local independent booksellers. Buy this book. It's awesome. You won't sleep because you'll just be wanting to finish it. But Memorial Day weekend is coming. So trust me on this one. Her Dark Lies, the fabulous JT Ellison. Thank you so much again for being with us.
Thanks, Cathy. This was great. You have a good one.
You too. Look
Bye.
forward to seeing you again. Bye.